Hello, welcome to Tuesday night. It is Kim Howerton. How you doing? It is very warm here today, so a little toasty. Welcome to the live. I'm glad to be here with you. Oh, the edge of my light is showing a little bit. Fix that. I'm glad to be here. Happy to answer any questions that come up. I should be up on both YouTube and Facebook. So if you got anything, I am here for it. Hopefully these will still work if as we're going. I might have another option if I need them. I realized I forgot to charge them up. What have I done today? I don't even know. Worked on some details of life as they go. Hey, Joni, glad to hear from you. Glad to have you here. Mm, yeah, that's what's going on. Just so last week I had a little minor surgery. I had what is it called? A fibroid removed. So that was not super duper fun, but I am healing just fine. But it made my last week a little bit wonky. And now I'm just getting back up to speed. Appreciate it. Glad that you guys are here. Like I'm sweating a little bit. It's a little warm where I am. So glad that you're here. Hey everybody. What would you like me to talk about today? So that was my week. It was sort of uneventful, but everything went fine. Well, it was eventful, but everything went fine. So now it's fine. Uh, I've got a very long to-do list, but it's all a lot of just random things, and life is going pretty well. I'm realizing I've got some speaking events coming up over the next few months, so that's happening. And yeah, my okay, thoughts on protein sparing modified fast. Thank you, Wanda. I was like, somebody asked me that question. Okay, so protein sparing modified fast. So protein sparing modified fasts were invented in the 70s, basically. I don't remember the doctor's name. Um, it did not go well at first because that doctor who invented it as a he called it the last chance diet. And I don't know what that referred to, if it was like last chance. Was there even gastric bypass then? I assume there was. But the idea, obviously, this was your last chance to lose weight for people that were very, very heavy. So it was designed for people that were very, very heavy. And they were trying to lose weight. And so what it did, the original design though, he um set it up as a liquid diet and he sold shakes. But the shakes he sold, so a bit of a tongue twister, um, were mostly collagen. I think actually maybe all the protein was collagen protein, and a bunch of people actually died. So that didn't go super well initially. And so the issue there was mostly that you can't survive on collagen protein shakes with no other nutrients. Then in the 90s, Lyle McDonald sort of revived the concept and wrote a book about it called Rapid Fat Loss. And he called it the modified protein sparing modified fast, but he was like, but it's stupid. He's kind of a straight shooter, I guess you could say. It was like, no, I'm not changing the name. It's still a protein sparing modified fast, but he modified it. And what he did is he designed it to be set up as eating a lot of lean protein and eating like leafy green vegetables. And depending on where you fell on the spectrum of like very, very heavy to less heavy, right? The heavier you were, kind of the more extreme it became. Like somebody who's closer to like appropriate would take more breaks and would eat more vegetables, and somebody who was very, very heavy would do it for longer, eat less vegetables, maybe. And then but not much fat, only incidental fat. And then Kevin says should be called the protein diet. Yeah. So the reason it was called the protein sparing diet was that um, it was sort of based on the idea that, yeah, the best way to get people to lose body fat is to fast them, to have them fast. But if you did a protein sparing fast, the idea was it's as close to a fast as you can get without risking so much loss of body protein or lean body mass. So that's how the name developed. But I wouldn't name it that myself. It's just a bit of a tongue twister. And so So that book came out in the 90s, and then the concept got revived in the recent years, with the Emmerichs talking quite a bit about using a protein sparing modified fast approach in the keto community. And so there you go. So that's the history lesson about protein sparing modified fasts. The idea behind a protein sparing modified fast, the details can vary depending on who you listen to, but the general idea is you're eating a good amount of protein, not necessarily like super high amounts of protein, but just enough protein that you're not risking as much loss of muscle mass or lean body mass. And so, as an example, I think for me, the idea I'm 5'9" ish, would be eating like around 130 to 150, again, depending on who you listen to, grams of protein, and then keeping my carbs to leafy green type vegetables pretty low. And then there's the how do you approach the protein spare? So I'd be getting maybe 800 calories a day on that diet, and fats would be as low as humanly possible. So like the leanest of lean protein sources I could find, but there's no such thing as a well, I mean, that's not true. I guess there is. Is there fat free? There, it's very, you can't do just fat free protein sources. You could do lean. And some people, I know the Emmerichs are big on to doing like 3 days a week of protein sparing versus, and then 4 days a week of sort of a more normal keto. Um, and the Lyle McDonald's for rapid fat loss, it's like a couple of weeks with a day off. So different patterns. The question was, what do I think about protein sparing modified fasts? I think they're a great tool to have in the toolbox. I personally prefer to average out my calories over the week. So, yeah, while maybe I might have more on one day, less on another day, I am happier, I don't know. Like let's say my normal fat intake, I'm just picking numbers for math here, people, was normally 100 grams of fat a day. And I could choose to do protein sparing where I drop that down to 30. So if I did that 3 days a week, what I'm now saving 210 grams of fat, right? So now my weekly average, instead of being 7,000, is, oh, yeah, 7,000 minus 210. So now my weekly is instead seven, let's go. I'm rounding 5, and then I divide that over. It's now, if my math is wrong, don't blame me. So now if I go to, now my average for the week is, or my total for the week is 5,000, it says 7,000. So now I'm I don't know. Instead of my daily being 100, it's now 75, right? I would rather do the 75, 75, 75, 75, 75 than 100, 100, 30, 100, 130. Like I would rather it be more closer to average. I find that works better for me. And but that, I think that's kind of a personality based concept. So I have had a few clients who've done 2 days of protein sparing days. Um, because they didn't really want to track, but they wanted to like reduce their intake in a way that they could trust. So they weren't tracking to begin with. So they introduced 2 day, they kind of ate their normal diet 5 days a week, and 2 days a week they ate just a really lean meat diet. And that created a deficit for them in a way they didn't have to think much about. And so I'm happy for it to be a tool in the toolbox. I don't think it should be overly used. I don't think it should be it's a crash diet. A protein sparing modified, like the rapid fat loss, Lyle McDonald, who invented it, said this is a crash diet. It's an extreme technique. Now, you can use an extreme technique less extremely, but you have to be somebody that you can trust. Like you have to ask yourself, can I trust myself to do this in a way that I'm going to optimize my health rather than just being a crash dieter? Generally speaking, weight lost very fast, not including water weight, but body fat loss very fast tends to come back. Body fat lost very fast tends to be more muscle mass than just fat mass. So there are a lot of reasons that I don't necessarily want rapid fat loss in my life. So, it'd be lovely to snap my fingers and jump to the end, um, and have done the work and not have to do the work. Um, you're better off. I think, and studies seem to agree. If you lose more than about 1.5% of your body weight a week, so that would be if you were 200. Now again, I'm saying water weight not count. So some of us, like at the beginning of diet, we drop weight real fast because that's water weight. But if you drop more than about 1.5%, so if you're 200 pounds, that'd be 3 pounds, which is a lot. If you drop more than about averaging about 3 pounds a week, at 200 pounds, the less you weigh, the less that number would be. You start to so at certain like at a certain rate, it's like mostly body fat and a little bit of lean muscle mass. As you increase that rate, how much body fat you start losing and how much muscle mass you start losing the muscle starts to meet each other. So really rapid fat loss, I'm not super behind, but just a protein sparing type day, I'm totally supportive of, but your overall diet design matters. So, you have to take it all into account. Joni said, "What do you think about Everly Well?" Yeah, I do know something about those tests. I wouldn't waste my money on them. The type of things they test, unless they've changed, what you're doing is they're testing, I think, IgG, or is it IgE? I think they're testing IgE, and IgE, the type of testing that these nutritional testing companies, they're not the only ones that do it. A lot of different companies do it. They result in like more false positives than you could even begin to imagine. There's a good guy. Let me pull that up. Hold on. Oh, I have like this Googling like this circuitous route where I'm like, where did I see that? I saw it on with Dr. Mike. He interviewed allergist. Let's see if I can find him. Common myths. Okay, sorry guys if YouTube starts playing. There it is. It's a YouTube. So I'm going to nope. Stop. Stop. There we go. I'm gonna take this YouTube link and I'm gonna grab it and then make sure this is the right one. His name is Dr. Dave Stukus. I will put it in the comments. This is a YouTube video with Dr. Mike. You guys know Dr. Mike, like from he's not a keto person. I don't think he really likes keto, but he had this interview and I just happened to see it. There you are. But if you put in, it's Mike Stukus, Stukus, is the doctor that he interviewed. Not so much about Mike, but about the doctor. Anyway, so there you go. Hey, Carnivore Coffee says, "Hey, happy Tuesday, Kim. By the way, I'm so excited about the upcoming thyroid series." Yeah, so those of you that don't know, I started doing a thyroid series. I just have one video up so far. Because in response, so I guess you guys probably know by now that there's a woman who did a video, and I'm intentionally not naming her because I don't want to seem like I'm attacking anybody. Did a video called Keto Wrecked My Thyroid, and I'm sort of going through the various claims made and seeing like what the evidence is around them. And so because I want you guys to be more educated about the topic, so I just did one video so far, but you can find it on my YouTube channel. Martha says, "I'm thinking my mother tried that shake diet. She didn't stand up for long, was making her sick." So that was that was not a common diet. I'm going to bet that almost all of you did, or that know somebody did OptiFast, not the last chance shake thing. But OptiFast is like a 600 calorie a day. It's actually still around. Now they give you food, but the calories are still super low, and it's still, they think they renamed it, but it's basically still around. Like Optimum or something they call it now, Optia, but OptiFast shake program. My aunt did it when I was a kid. It was very popular in the 80s. Wanda says, thank you. It helped me start losing again. We're doing alternate days. I realized I had not been eating enough protein and dairy. Yeah. So sometimes you do something and you're like, oh, I realized that I need to change something else. And so it can totally help. Nancy says, I finally got my fasting insulin. What's an ideal level? So I guess you would look at your ideal level. It depends. I would say that if you are a sedentary, middle-aged woman like me, I try to keep my level around 5 international units. If you are an athlete, it might be a little lower than that. There doesn't seem to be a lot of benefit to keeping it under 5. If it's under 6, you're in pretty good shape. Above that, I would continue to work on it. But it's not super bad. It's, the higher it is above 6, I would say, the more you aggressively you want to work on it. I try to keep mine in the 5-ish range, and I'm perfectly happy with that. Let's see. Somebody said something. Teresa says, I think I did that back in 2002. It's called MetaFast. Yep, MetaFast and OptiFast. It's not the same, but it is also a very, very, very low calorie diet. All right. I'm gonna hide this now. I think you've seen enough of that. No, I don't want to put myself in timeout. Thank you. Okay. Optavia now. All right, there you go. Yeah, I remember when Oprah did the OptiFast, lost a bunch of weight, rolled out that. I remember that. She was wearing a black turtleneck and like tight blue jeans with a belt. Nancy, it's 4.2. That is excellent. Excellent. You, my friend, are very likely no longer insulin resistant. So congratulations. Do a happy dance. All right. So, what else is going on out there today? Um, I took a nice walk right before this call, which is part of the reason I'm a little like, "Ooh, a little warm." It's super pretty out, so I was happy to do it, but a little sunny. And I am not, I love warm weather, but I'm not the best when I get too hot. I get a little crazy. Um, Teresa said, "Oh yeah, lost 165 pounds and gained it all back." Yeah, everybody did. Everybody did. It's very common. And it's, for a lot of reasons, right? Those shake diets, you don't really learn how to eat. You also, again, what happened right when I was talking earlier about if you lose weight, body weight at too fast a pace, you actually lose lean mass in a greater quantity than you do when you lose it at a slower pace. So let's imagine you started your OptiFast diet at 200 pounds, or wait, you lost 165 pounds. All right. So let's say you started your OptiFast diet at 300 pounds, and then you lost 165 pounds. So you got down to 145. Let's say at 300 pounds, you had 70% body fat. Pull out the calculator here. It gets a little hard. I used to tutor the SAT, but I've seen it's hard to do a stream while you're doing it, and I'm not as good at these things anymore. Times 23. So you had 90 pounds. Now, let's say you had 60% body fat at 300 pounds. So 300 times 0.4. You had 120 pounds of lean body mass and 180 pounds of fat. Now you lost that incredibly rapidly. So you lost, let's see, I'll just kind of round it off. Let's say then you lost 50 pounds. No, that's too much. 40. And then, all right. So you lost 125 pounds of body fat and 40 pounds of muscle, lean mass, which is muscle and other stuff. And you're down to 145. And you think, well, that's not bad. That's not bad. Now you regain that weight though, but you don't really get that lean mass back. You gain it back as fat. So whereas you started at 300 pounds with 60% body fat, when you went back up to 300 pounds, I don't know that you went, I'm just putting out some numbers there. Now, when you went back up to 300 pounds, you were at let's go 140. Now you have like almost 70% body fat. And then if you did that again, you'd have like 75% body fat. You did that again, right? So it's just every time you do that kind of drastic, rapid, fast weight loss and then regain the weight, you end up with a much worse scenario than you had before. Your metabolic rate is lower, the amount of calories you need to maintain your weight is lower, all sorts of things. So you don't want to lose too fast. Now, certainly losing at 1.5% is actually much faster than most people lose at. That's just kind of the top of the suggested range for most people. Again, I'm not counting those initial weeks when you're dropping massive water weight. That's not part of that equation. Or it's not part of that discussion as much. Teresa says, thanks to you, the berries, two crazy keto, serious keto, I've been able to lose 100 pounds. Congratulations. You did amazing. Congrats. Tiffany said, how do you work up to eating more protein? I'm very full right now at 110 to 135 daily, but I think it's probably too low. I'm 5'9", 279 pounds with a initial goal between 200 and 215. Okay. So first of all, if you're averaging 125 grams of protein, which is kind of what it seems like you're averaging, you might be eating enough protein. Here's the deal with protein. We recommend that you hit 1 gram per pound of reference body weight, right? So that's just an easy way to think about it. So if you're at 5'9", I'm 5'9", so I'll give you, so reference body weight at that height is around 145 pounds. For easier math, sometimes I round it to 150 because it really doesn't matter at that point. So if I'm eating 150, that would be eating 145 is that level of like 1 gram per pound of reference body weight. Which by the way, doesn't have to do with your goal body weight so much as like kind of just statistically what your lean body mass is likely to be. We're just making a guess based on that number because we don't necessarily know everybody's lean body mass. If you get 80% of that amount, so 0.8 grams per pound of body weight or reference body weight, then you're meeting the minimal needs, certainly. So that's 116 grams. So the reason we tell people to go for the 1 rather than the 0.8 is eating a lot of protein tends to displace a lot of other food that you can overeat easier. So if you have an aggressive protein goal, you will often end up in a place where the treats and nibbles and bites of desserts and these things, they don't fit anymore because you're having to focus your eating on the protein. So if you're not overeating overall and you're somewhere between 110 and 135 grams a day, you're probably fine on protein. Then it becomes about managing the other things. So for me, when I started eating protein, a lot higher protein, like I started on a very low protein diet, then I went to a moderate-ish protein diet, and then I went to eating more of a, it's not high, but a much higher protein diet. I get around 45 grams a day. When I started cranking up the protein, I had to drop the fat or I just couldn't do it. And so that hunger shift, that listening to my hunger and saying, well, if I'm aiming at this protein number, my other calories have to come down to make room, or I just feel like a stuffed hog every day. It made a shift in my macros that came about fairly naturally initially then, rather than, you know, trying to restrict one thing, and not feeling happy about it. I was like, well, it's got to go because I can't eat it. I just don't. I'm too full. And so one of the reasons I tell people to target quite a high amount of protein is really that, it displaces some of the other things that we are much easier at overeating. Tiffany says, I'm currently doing carnivore with no dairy other than butter. If it is working for you, Tiffany, I am thrilled. Terry says, keto 3 years, everything, 3.5 years, everything was going great until a head injury. I'm so sorry, Terry. Staying keto, but meat texture is hard right now. Any suggestions to make it more tolerable? Um, is it like the chewiness? I would think about the texture that bothers you. Like I have some clients who like something like bacon that's crispy doesn't bother them, but something that's chewy like steak bothers them. And so then I would say, make decisions about which type of meat you buy or how you cook it. Like, if like stewing meat rather than grilling it, it's going to make a big difference in the texture. And then looking to other ways to get protein that aren't meat as well, like um, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, um, cheese, even things like protein shakes. Keto Chow is a great brand. So finding some ways that it's more pleasurable for you. Sherry says, do you think a TSH number of 5.88 would need to be addressed? It had gone up from 2.55. I would like your opinion. Oh, and Kim mentioned eggs. Yes, eggs, also a good protein source. I think TSH, so TSH stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. So we have a pituitary gland. I don't actually know where it is. We have a pituitary gland in our head, in our brain. And the pituitary is sort of like the great and all powerful Oz, and it senses when things are low and high, and it sends something called the TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, to your thyroid gland to tell it to make more T4. T4 has, it's called T4 because it has 4 iodine atoms. Um, and we can't use T4, we need T3. So the TSH says make more, the T4 is made, T4 is then converted into T3, the unbound free T3 is then used. And so that's kind of the progression. So when your TSH goes up, it is an indication that your body believes it does not have enough thyroid hormone for whatever reason. That might be true, that might be untrue. So I would never ever medicate based, well, I can't medicate because I'm not a doctor, but I would never want someone to medicate based on solely a TSH. I would want them to run a free T3, a free T4, a reverse T3, and then I would also like to rule out Hashimoto's by getting a TPO and a TGB. So like there are two antibody tests for Hashimoto's. You want the free T4 to you still want the TSH. You want the TSH to say, what's my signal saying? You want the T4 to say, am I making enough? And then you need the free T3, not total, free T3, free on both of these, to say, am I creating enough T3 that I should have enough to do what I need to do? And you also want to look at the reverse T3 because I always say, like, so it's like you have neighbors, T3 and reverse T3. If your packages are going to apartment reverse T3 instead of apartment T3, everything's getting delivered, but it's not going where it needs to go to use it. So you need to make sure that it's not, so you check reverse T3 as well to make sure that number is not high, because that would indicate that it's going to the wrong place. So to short answer your question, yes, even a 2.5, I would say we should have a full panel on that, because I think anything above a 1 is a sign that potentially something could be off. Certainly a 5.8 is a sign that something could be off. So I would get a full panel run on your other labs. Every once in a while, TSH is just wacky, and it was just the time. One of the things that can happen is because it's a signal, right? It's saying like more or less, more or less. If you just exercise, it'll be really high because it thinks you need more energy, but it's just that your body will just use a ton more energy. But your body thinks you're going to start using that much energy from now on, right? And so but it comes back down and the TSH is going to go down. So I would never do anything based on a TSH alone, but certainly a 5.8, in my opinion, is higher than I would want it to be. And I would want to know why. All right. I'm going to have to, hold on. Is the thing in here? This is where I'm looking for my backup headphones. Got a little box. Anyone else organize themselves like this? Not especially well, but they're in here. All right, what else we got, people? Hey, Karen, nice to see you. Nice to see you in Cambodia. How are things going there? Hopefully good. All right, bear with me. I'm going to change out the earbuds. Nope, it's on the other side. Okay, we should be good now. I'll put these away. Sherry says, thanks, Kim. My T3 was on the low side as well. Yeah, so if your T3 was low and your TSH was high, that would potentially be a sign that you might be low. What else? Rachel says, when is the best time for your female cycle to have a hormone panel taken? Do you, oh, it's better, Larry? Okay, well, good to know. Maybe I'll switch to this from now on. I plugged in directly instead of using a wireless. I'm lost. Yeah, so most hormone panels want you to test on day 21 if you're getting your sex hormones tested. That's what my doctor always used to have me do. So I would schedule my labs on day 21 or so of my cycle. But I would ask your doctor, because sometimes they want to test things in the luteal phase, or, so there are certain tests they might want to do in different phases. So ask your doctor when you guys talk about the tests you're going to get, ask them when in your cycle they want you to test. It's most common that people test these things on day 21. So you count day 1 is the first day of your period, and then day 21 would be the 21st day after that. So that's how most people do it. Now, that's if you have a 28 to 31 day cycle. If you have a shorter or longer cycle, adjust accordingly. But that's the general advice that I've gotten. But I would check, because in your hormones, like the first half of your cycle, you have like certain things are higher, and the second half of your cycle, like progesterone goes up. So if you're testing your progesterone, you have to do it in the second part because there's not very much in the first part. But if you're testing your estrogen, you might want to. So it's a discussion about what you're testing specifically to know when you'd want to test it. If you're saying, does it matter if I'm doing like a thyroid test when I am in my cycle? No, I think the only thing that really matters is sex hormones there. I could be wrong, but I think that's the only time it really comes up. Kim asked, how are the workouts going? I took a couple of days off last week for my workouts because I had a little minor surgery. No biggie. I'm all fine, and I'm back at it this week. But this morning, to be perfectly honest, I should have been back at it, but I'd already scheduled some things, so I had to do that. So I've been off about a week, but I took a long walk today instead. I've been walking the whole time, but I wasn't lifting weights for a little bit, out of an abundance of caution and a little laziness. But I'm back at it this week. Good to know on the sound, Larry. I'll use this from now on instead of the little cigarillo earbuddy things, if I remember. They really screwed with me when Apple changed out all the attachments to things, because these were my go-to plug-in earbuds, but they don't work on my phone anymore because they have a little pointy cable instead of the iPhone cable. Larry said, weights are good, but take it easy. Yeah, I decided to give myself kind of a little bit of an easy week. Karen said, starting to carnivore in January, finally broke my stall, now 9 pounds, but more importantly, 15 inches. Wow, Karen, congrats. Great job. Great job. You've been really sticking with it. You've done so well over the years. So well. So I'm glad to hear that. I think that carnivore can be a great thing. It can really focus your eating and eliminate some of those temptations. You kind of have to really be hungry to eat meat upon meat upon meat, whereas it's pretty easy to eat a desserty thing, even if it's keto, when you're not really hungry. So absolutely can be very helpful to moderate your eating habits. Kim says, I made some chicken liver mixed in bacon. Yum. Sounds good. Ate it with cheese. Nice. Maureen, walking 3 to 4 miles a day is my go-to. Walking is so underrated. I think walking is amazing. I think, get your bearing weight on your legs. It's good for you long-term. It gets you moving. You get those steps in. I think walking is really underrated. I think, most sort of like HIIT is probably not the best idea for heavy people, even if you're not a heavy person. And long term, there's just so much adaptation to hardcore cardio workouts, though they're great for our cardiovascular system. They're not as good for long-term weight management, in my opinion. And certainly I would rather see someone walking and lifting weights than doing a lot of classes where they're very sweaty after them. But, Jean says, my face is looking thinner, cheekbones for days. Thank you. I appreciate that. I fight a little bit with my turkey neck. And then I would also like aging fun. But I appreciate it. Yeah, it is getting a little thinner. Betsy says, have you ever looked into rebounding? I have a client that loves rebounding. Is totally into it. But I haven't done a lot of research on my own. But my client is awesome and she loves it. I just like going outside. So I like walking outside. I live in a place where most of the year it's pretty nice outside. So when I get a chance, I like to walk outside. Like I walk home from my gym. That kind of thing. Larry says, nuts are my downfalls. Pistachios and cashews. Yes. And pistachios and cashews are pretty carby. Like comparatively speaking, like a pecan or a macadamia nut, like the carb difference is pretty extreme on the pecans and cashews. But I love pistachios and cashews. But yeah, those suckers add up quick. I let myself have nuts on things. So like I can chop up some nuts and put them on a salad, but I'm not allowed to stick my hand in the jar and eat them. I'll just keep eating them. What is rebounding? I don't know very much about it, but from what I understand, it's a jumpy thing. You're on like, I don't know if you're just on it's something that has like, I'm always picturing like a little mini trampoline, but I think it's more than that. But there's like, it's a machine and there's motion and there's resistance, but it's tempered. If somebody, Betsy, if you want to give a description, feel free. Carnivore and Coffee says, I found carnivore to just be easier as far as not having to put any thought into it. I have a small amount of veg on weekends, but still less than about 10 grams on those days. Amy says it's a mini trampoline. All right, that makes sense. What are my thoughts? Yeah, I mean, if carnivore like just works for you, that's amazing. I liked it when I did it, but it wasn't the right thing for me long term. I enjoy a more flexibility in my food. I enjoy a lot of vegetables in my life, and so I prefer a sort of high veg, low carb approach. But I think what's amazing is we are all different, and we all should do what works best for us. Marlene says, what are my thoughts about switching to Armour Thyroid away from synthetic, to address low T3? Yeah, well, Synthroid doesn't have any T3. So like Synthroid is just T4. and it's synthetic T4. I am on Armour myself because I have problems converting T4 to T3. And so I do Armour. I think it's very helpful. I am a big supporter of the desiccated thyroid because there's always debate, and some people start saying, well, but it's not exactly the right ratio compared to da. It's like, but what do you feel better on? And it makes perfect sense to me that if your problem is converting T4 to T3, giving me more T4 is not going to help. It's like, water everywhere and not a drop to drink. You have to be able to convert it to use it. So, yeah. So I convert. So I have to get the thing that I can't convert. So I use Armour, and I'm happy with it. Karen says, planning on 90 days of carnivore. Sounds great. I think it's good to set mini goals. Deborah says, just got home, was listening while I drove. Thank you for doing a thyroid series. Looking forward to it. Well, I'm happy that I could make you guys happy. Somebody today complained that I apologize too much in my first video. Well, because I'm talking about a thing a person said. I'm talking like a person shared their perspective, and I'm like, well, that's wrong. And I felt like I don't want to be rude about that. Like, I want to be respectful to my other keto people. So I did. I was sort of like, hey, I just want to make it really clear that I'm going to try really hard not to make this personal or be insulting. And I shared that I felt uncomfortable because I did. I do feel uncomfortable criticizing what feels like criticizing somebody for something they said, but I'm not really criticizing. I'm explaining, but it feels hard. Like, I mean, maybe not everyone feels this way, but do you feel like you're criticizing someone when you're correcting them? It's hard not to feel like that to me. I would hate it if someone came on my channel and was like, everything you said is totally wrong. I'd hate that. So I felt I had feelings. So I said it on the video, and then somebody's like, you apologize too much. Ruins the video. I'm like, okay, well, I can't make everybody happy. Deborah says, I wish I could get my doctor to change to NDT. Yeah, it can be a real challenge to get your doctor to listen to what you want. Sorry. Oh, I'm going to yawn for some odd reason. Deborah, I hear ya. Carnivore and coffee says, I don't know what the future holds. I have keto days. I'm good with that. Both work for me. I've just found carnivore to be easy for now. Exactly. And you have to do what works for you right now. And I think you also can't get in the mindset that it has to work forever, or you're violating some agreement you made with no one, right? You do what works for you. And if it makes sense to you, you just keep doing what works for you. And if you feel good and you're functioning well, and see any problems with that. Some people try and act like, oh, if you say you're going to do this, then you have to keep doing this. And if you stop doing this, then you've done something wrong. Sorry, but this is not like a religion or a political affiliation. And you can change those things too. But, this is just what I like. This is just what works for my body. It doesn't have to work for anybody else's body. Karen says, my doctor used to have me on Armour and a compounded T3, but they found out my low thyroid numbers was not Hashimoto's, but due to insufficient iodine intake. Wow. All right. Well, good to know. Good to know. Well, also good to fix. I just had a weird noise moment. Sorry if that was weird on the microphone. It sounded like my trachea was coming out. All right. What else is going on, people? So yeah. So what did I share in my first thyroid video? My first thyroid video, I shared that a study had been shared from a study had been shared, which the person said that children were automatically put on thyroid medication when they went on a when they went on a ketogenic diet to treat epilepsy. And I found the study she was talking about, but it didn't say what I thought it said. So I went to the head of the program at Johns Hopkins and asked him if that was in fact what they tell people to do. And in fact, it was not. So I was able to clear up that little fact right off the board. And so that was the first video. And then in subsequent videos, I'm going to go through all the studies and talk about them. I've got Amber O'Hearn, who's just one of the smartest people that I've ever met about things. So I'm going to talk to her and talk to Nisha about Hashimoto's. So all that thing, all those things, all the things. Joy says, are there any scientific tests done on women over 40 long-term concerning keto safety? No, I mean, quite honestly, so let's talk about how a study gets done, right? So somebody has to pay for a study to get done. So if you want a study done, there has to be an incentive for somebody to do the study, right? And so if we look at keto, there's no incentive for anyone to do any study on keto in a very specific circumstance, I should say. So if you're asking, like, did somebody put 2,000 women on a ketogenic diet for 5 years and then monitor them for those 5 years to confirm that none of them over those 10 years afterwards had any ongoing health problems that they thought were directly related to keto? I just don't see a study like that happening. Now, how do studies? So usually when they look at studies like when you look at what studies are done, right? So one of the studies is they looked at 100 children put on ketogenic diets for epilepsy over the course of a year. Well, that was easier to do, right? Because those 100 kids, they're doing a protocol with a doctor for that time. So they're being monitored. So what I can say, Joy, though, is you can start to look at related things. Like we can look at Virta's work. Virta is Stephen Finney's company, not just his company, but he's there at Virta. And Virta puts people on ketogenic diets. And then it knows they're on ketogenic diets because it monitors their beta hydroxybutyrate over time. And so if you've got thousands of people that you're treating for their type 2 diabetes, right? That's what they do. That's what Virta does. They treat people with type 2 diabetes with a ketogenic approach. And they monitor these people and they see how many people dropped out, how many people stayed with it, what were their results, did they have any major health events? And so you can kind of look at that and extrapolate and say, did these people have any major adverse health events? Now, they might not be specifically looking at thyroid or what particular measures you're looking at, but they're going to report to a certain degree any major adverse things going on in their life because they're actually doing coaching with someone during the program. So we can look to companies like Virta to put out some data potentially that tells us, like, how safe is this long term? And so that's more what I would say we're able to find rather than specific scientific studies on long-term safety. And you have to kind of look at, like, what am I considering safe? What am I concerned about? And then extrapolate from there. Larry asks, know of any spicy low-carb dip recipes made with cream cheese? Kim has suggested buffalo chicken dip. That sounds about right to me. Maria, thank you so Maria has sent me something through YouTube, which is very nice, which is a contribution to my account. I appreciate that, Maria. Thank you very much. Maria says she's doing BBBE for 90 days on 3:30. I feel like my metabolism slowed down from the last year of ketovore. Feel like I need reverse dieting, hoping BBBE will help. Haven't lost any weight from it, up 2 pounds. So 3:30. I see, you haven't started yet. So great. I appreciate you trying something that works for you. I have a new round of Keto Unstuck starting in April, and that is definitely teaching reverse dieting to people if they want hand-holding through that process. But I find for a lot of people, tracking and making sure they're eating enough for long periods of time and then going into periods of a cut, the most effective way to manage their weight long term. That's just what I found. There are many ways to skin a cat, but that is what I like. Karen says, my thyroid was borderline for years, got better on keto. Yeah, a lot of people's do. The metabolic syndrome is very much there are studies that show that having insulin resistance is the phrase I actually wanted to use. Having insulin resistance causes thyroid dysregulation. They do know that. So if you have insulin resistance, you are much more likely to either become hyperthyroid or hypothyroid. So it absolutely means that there is a causal connection between insulin resistance and thyroid problems. And so reversing some of your insulin resistance in most people does lead to improvement in their thyroid number. Now, the argument might be once you become insulin sensitive and you're no longer insulin resistant, is it still a good idea to stay in ketosis? And that's something we could totally talk about. But certainly when you're trying to reverse insulin resistance, I would say that since we do know that it does lead to thyroid irregularities, that's something that maybe is prioritized. Larry says keto is safe. Whole food, low carb spectrum is including carnivore. Just find out works for you. Right. And our bodies give us signals if something isn't working for us, so we can listen for those. Kim says evolutionarily, people have pretty much been keto until the last 100 years or so. I would say probably low carb, but yeah, same spectrum. All right. What does it mean when free T4 is high? So if your free T4 is high, you are making more T4 than potentially your body can use. I mean, that's the direct explanation. If you're regularly making way more thyroid hormone than you need, that's what they call hyperthyroid rather than hypo, not enough, hyper, too much. So you might be developing hyperthyroid, or it could have been a weird reading and doesn't mean anything, but that would be if you look into that deeper. If you have high T4 but not high T3, potentially you might be having a bit of a conversion problem. So you're having to overmake to get enough. So there can be a lot of different ways to look at it, but it would be something that I would definitely follow up with your doctor, because I am not a doctor. I cannot give medical advice, and I can certainly not treat anyone or prescribe any medication. So you definitely are going to need your doctor, but I would definitely look into a follow-up on that. Oh, you guys, guess what? I'll put a link up, but the ketogenic.com told me that I've been nominated for keto influencer, keto teacher. What was it? I should probably look at it. No, that's not where it is. It said for the Metabolic Health Summit, which I'm going to, I have been nominated for impact to the community. Anyway, so I'll put a link in the notes. If you could do me a huge favor tonight, guys, and nominate me, it'll help me be more likely to make it into the top 3 to get voted for. And I would love to be at least in the top 3, would be really nice. So I'll put a link in there and some instructions. So you let me know and you can maybe help me out. It would be really appreciated. Karen says, my problem is eating the treats to get the calories higher. How can I convince myself that it's okay to eat more bacon and eggs? 4 bacon and 3 eggs seems like a lot, but only 600 calories. Yeah, Karen, you're just in a really new phase where you're going to have to rearrange your brain cells to think, I need to be more nourished. So if you're telling me like, oh, I feel sick eating this much, that's another issue. But just trying to convince your brain that it's okay,
that is a process. And I think it's looking at just reminding yourself, like you said, it's only 600 calories and I need more than that, and just starting to get used to it. It's a process, but it's a good one for you because I think I have several clients who started eating more, didn't gain any weight, but gosh, they were like, I have so much energy and I have so much, like, I want to like exercise and everything feels like that. Their whole persona got brighter because they weren't under eating anymore. Julie says, I have symptoms of low thyroid, but I've never taken anything for it. My last TH was 1.295, which is not high, really. I have been diagnosed with diabetes, but is controlled with diet. I know there's a wide thyroid range. Do you think I should ask for additional testing when I get labs done this year? Yeah, I mean, you might as well. It's certainly worthwhile to check in. And I would say it's, you want a TSH, a free T3, a free T4, and a reverse T3, and then also test you for Hashimoto's, which is a very common autoimmune condition that relates to thyroid. So that's a TPO, and I think it's a TGB. There are two tests. Oh, yeah. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up if you're on YouTube, and subscribe to my channel if you're on YouTube. If you're over on Facebook and you're not watching on YouTube, you're welcome to stay on Facebook, but also go subscribe to my channel on YouTube when you get a chance. If you're on YouTube and you use Facebook, go over to Facebook and like my channel, which is The Ketonist. Cross posts, people just give the love. Give the love. I'll do my best to give you all the things I can. If you could pay it back, that'd be awesome. So I will talk to you guys next week. I hope everyone is healthy and happy, and we will continue this merry band of us when we go places together. All right. Okay. Well, Karen says it feels like a lot when others look at it. You're feeling judged, right? Get a little bravado. Be like, yeah, this is my meal. I eat a lot. Be proud of it. Like, I get to eat this. I have to eat this. I'm required to. Kim said I had to eat this. All right, guys. Have a great week. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.